And welcome back. As we said, we'll continue to monitor the situation in Paris, but now we get to issues closer to home. And Dominic, you were there, obviously, in Lower Manhattan yet again today for the Sheldon Silver trial. Let's give a status check. The prosecution obviously laid out their case first. Have they wrapped up? And where do we go next, obviously, with the defense presentation?
Prosecution has about 3 more days, Richard, and then it turns over to the defense. Week number 2 has come to a close, and here's what Mr. Silver told us today. End of week number 2, how do you feel?
Feel fine. I feel like when all of this is over, I will be vindicated.
Much has been made publicly about your appearance in the courtroom, your demeanor, described as kind and friendly. Do you make anything of that, and what does that mean?
I learned that from my mother a long time ago. Be kind to people and friendly.
Federal prosecutors are trying to make their case. The allegation that for lucrative medical referrals to the law firm that employed Silver, Whites and Luxembourg, that Silver allegedly in return pushed through state grants totaling $500,000 to a Columbia University oncologist, and also allegedly that Silver did not reveal income on disclosure forms. Now, the issue, as Richard led off this segment, is what happens next. The prosecution again goes into about Wednesday. This is what the federal prosecutors told the judge, and then it's turned over to the defense of Mr. Silver. There has been numerous published reports that Mr. Silver plans on calling a who's who of Albany to come to 40 Center Street and, under subpoena, testify on his behalf. We put the question directly to Mr. Silver tonight about his witness list, and he basically shut us down.
I don't think that's appropriate at this time. The case will be tried in the courtroom, not in the media.
And so, Richard, that's been the reaction. When you try and find out, I don't know if it's because the federal judge has to sign off, you have a lawyer here at the table, has to sign off on the witness list, but it's been almost like pulling teeth to find out who Mr. Silver is going to call. But we'll find out soon enough because his case is up starting on Thursday.
You know, Scott, one of the questions I had about this was Vito Lopez, who recently passed away, and someone who was at the center of his own troubles, whether it was sexual harassment and even corruption probes, etc. Why would he be a witness that Sheldon Silver is going to call? If people remember that story, not to get too much in the weeds, Sheldon Silver used $100,000, albeit legally, even though there's a stink to it, to pay some of the accusers of Mr. Lopez. And he certainly went out of his way to keep the issue quiet. You would think he and some of the other names we've heard about, like the Ratvogels, for example, that were rumored to be on the witness list, would be prosecution witnesses, not defense witnesses. Give the legal logic of that.
Well, it's hard. I mean, I think the only reason they might have had him is to say, look, you know, he helped Vito out, so this is your time to pay me back and say things are, you know, this is what things are, how things are done. And to Dominic's point, I mean, you know, the issue here is lawyers get referral fees a lot when they're working for firms and what have you. The issue is whether he used his state position to get state funds to then give to somebody else on behalf and then raise. This is not as a slam dunk, I don't think, as I thought it was.
Richard, let me just say this, and I'm glad you guys are, because it's reminding things as I've gone along during the day. Your point is exactly 1,000% accurate. The federal judge, less than 4 hours ago, the federal judge herself said this is a matter, as it relates to Silver, as is there a quid pro quo? Her exact words. Yep, yep. So it's amazing to sit there and in the courthouse. I've been around lawyers a very long time, but to see how referral fees work. Keep in mind, Richard, and I'm so glad you said that, that's not illegal.
No,
it may be slimy,
but here comes the rub.
But it's not illegal.
Referrals certainly are not illegal. But there's 2 questions for me. The question of enrichment. And he made between $3 to $4 mil just off of this. We haven't even gotten to the real estate stuff, right? And who knows how much more over the course of a lifetime for other stuff. Okay. But 500 grand didn't come out of that law firm's pocket. The 500 grand came out of the 4 of us and how many other million New Yorkers. this was taxpayer funds that went to a clinic, even if it's a justifiable dollars spent to try and deal with mesothelioma, all right, a horrible disease, right, attached to asbestos and all the rest, he got enriched as a consequence. Now, help me out here. Is it the issue of disclosure and transparency, or is it the issue of I can't use state funds to then get enriched if I'm doing no legal work? If all I am is the go-between here to make sure that the money gets, or the cases get referred to my firm, where I'll then get a percentage here of whatever settlements.
Well, I mean, the issue again is there are rainmakers in legal firms that do not do real law. They just bring in clients, okay? That's legitimate, and they make their own arrangements with whatever they do.
But they've made an issue at trial, though, Scott, about that he's done no work.
Well, but the more important part, I think, is that he had the slush fund. He really did, that nobody had control of except for him. And that this money that was directed, and nobody knew about it, not the health department, not any of the departments that should see it, not the controller's
except here's
office.
the only thing, and Andrew and I were talking about this yesterday. For all intents and purposes, everything you said is right, except theoretically the AG and others had power of oversight over this. Literally 20 other signatories here. Mm-hmm. Now the budget office, I guess the office of the budget in Albany said, yes, we basically okayed the money. We didn't know who was going to get it. We didn't know over what time period or if it was going to be staggered or whatever the case is. But we okayed the money. We said, here's 500 grand. Sounds like a good cause. Go ahead. It does seem, though, as distasteful as it is, that's perfectly legal in Albany.
Well, yes. But in this case, nobody really knew what it was for. They went through the documents after they were told to send this money to the.
But is that his fault or theirs?
Well, I mean, that's power in Albany, and he'll argue that that's just the way it works.
That's exactly what was argued. That the speaker, exactly what he just said. We may not like it, but what was said in the courtroom. First of all, it's weird, Richard, to sit in a courtroom in a criminal case and hear the names Governor Cuomo, Governor Spitzer, and Governor Patterson bantered about, and you have a jury, and I find it interesting. You have predominantly, I believe, a jury of color. They're mostly black and Latino people on the jury. But at issue, and this is not a slam dunk. I don't care what the Post prints or other, it's not a slam dunk because it's the power of the speaker. And under the speakers, they don't list what his I forgot what you call them, the member items. They don't list what his exact, and what helps.
And apparently his office, by the way, actively made sure of that. Yes. That there was not, that was removed, that top line, right?
But what helps him, he's done such health grants. The ones that are in question, he's done them all over the state. So if it's corruption and I'm not on the jury, it's not just those two. He's done this all over the state.
Well, and there's no letter that says quid pro quo.
Right.
Which is why this friendship with the doctor, whether he is a friend or not, really becomes important.
And the emails certainly indicate, at least in the doctor's mind. Now, he testified, Andrew, to say he never told me that there was a stated stipulation. I'm going to give you the money, you give me the referrals. But certainly in the emails to other colleagues of his, he certainly didn't want to upset Sheldon Silver, and he certainly was upset that Sheldon Silver and the firm stopped making contributions, but then they came in the form of 500 grand.
Yes,
that's
and
really
they were obviously concerned about the relationship with Sheldon Silver, though the emails didn't specify we have to do this or we'll lose this or we have to do this so that we can gain this. But it's, clearly they wanted to stay on Sheldon Silver's good side. One other point just about the oversight and the AG's office and the Comptroller's office that in theory at least signed off on these grants. We're in a 3-men-in-a-room state government system. We've reported on this many times. I mean, it's the Senate President, the Assembly Speaker, and the Governor that basically decide how the budget is going to be set up. Do you really think in that political environment that there's anything other than just, this is Shelley's money, just, rubber stamp it and move on? I can't imagine, certainly wasn't on the Assembly side where Sheldon Silver would be the rubber stamp for anybody else's member items. So he got to approve theirs and he gets to approve his own. And I'd be very surprised if you got any serious scrutiny or oversight from anybody in the executive branch either.
Here's my only question. Sheldon Silver is a very smart guy. He's laying out his case to say, you may not like it, you may want to hold your nose, but this is the way things have been done in Albany before I got there and since I've been there, and when I'm gone, it'll be the same way. Okay, that's his defense. But Preet Bahar's a pretty smart guy, too. I'm surprised to this point if this is the only evidence he's going to lay out, which is There's a check for 500 grand, and look at all the money that was in his pocket here. And Taub, by the way, he felt that, you know, he didn't want it to tick off Shelley. He has to have more than that, right?
Richard, the case, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, Dominic.
The case is over in 72 hours. The reason why Mr. Bahara keeps showing up in the courtroom, and this is just one journalist's opinion, he's scared to death that he's going to lose this case. And he may, I don't see that, as of right now, the evidence that I've seen, and I haven't even seen Mr. Silver's defense, I don't see a conviction on the major charge.
There's been nothing in court that would establish that quid pro quo that you've seen. There's been nothing that would...
Nothing that would clearly establish it.
One would have to assume, and I think the other angle to this case is the real estate angle to this case still hasn't been brought up yet. So that has to come in, and then I would assume there would be some testimony that tries to link specific actions or penalties to the money that Silver got, the quid pro quo.
Well, and there is a letter. Yeah, there is a letter on that. As a matter of fact, the letter says you will get from the real estate.
That's the only problem
the other attorneys that you're going to get. But that still could be legitimate. I mean, it depends on. But now he's getting money contributed, but those people contribute to everyone.
And I've also heard that some of the defense witnesses that were called as defense witnesses were made defense witnesses in part because they were going to become prosecution witnesses anyway. So they try to get ahead of it. So I'm not so sure they're all going to be able to buttress the case of Shelley Silver.
Richard, you just jarred something else in my memory as it relates to the witnesses. You're right about the witnesses that are being called, but another item, several of the witnesses are reluctant to testify, and it's coming out in their testimony that it appears they don't believe Mr. Silver did anything wrong. And so they're forced to testify because of the subpoena, but I just don't see the conviction as of right now. And the federal judge, she runs a very tight court.
I'll only tell you this. I said this last night here. We had a spirited debate with our friend Mr. Brodsky, former assemblyman himself, and some others. To me, if at the end of the day, Shelley Silver walks out of the courthouse, you know, says, Dominic, like I told you every week here, I'm going to be vindicated, that is the worst indictment on Albany. If it's perfectly fine to give 500 grand of our money, to put 3 to 4 mil in your pocket here, none of us know the wiser until the U.S. attorney's got to tell us what's going on, and that's business as usual, and that's okay. Well, shame on us if we permit that. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. We are going to take a quick commercial break here, and when we come back, we'll have an update from Paris, and also we'll have another topic as well. Stay with us.